It is 6:04, and we are in session for the Kerrville City Council. I do want to tell you that there was no action taken in the executive session, and there's no need to act upon any item from there at this time. We are a little bit late because we had some technical difficulties, but those have been resolved. I want to ask you, please, if you would, for those who are here, and by the way, again, we don't have, we have staff here, but not citizens, but we will in September be opening the meetings. But let's stand now for the invocation and the pledge. Father, thank you for the protection and safety that is provided by our first responders. Police, fire, EMS. Lord, thank you for the work that they do, sometimes, of course, dangerous, often difficult. And we ask your protection on them and their very vital work in helping this community to be all it can be. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Now for a pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if you'll remain standing, I'm going to read a proclamation. As you know, presently the council is recognizing people for their kindness in our community, and we look forward to this being a presentation that can be made in person. It won't be tonight, but you will see, if you're watching, the picture of the staff from the Community Foundation. The City of Kerrville recognizes the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country with the August 25, 2020 Kerrville Kindness Award. The Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country, a public charitable foundation created by and for residents of the Texas Hill Country, has been instrumental in the facilitation and distribution of funds created to address the needs of area individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic. The foundation oversees the Kerrville Utility Kindness Fund, the Hill Country Strong Fund, and the Kerrville Food Relief Fund, all of which have directed and ease some of the suffering caused locally by the worldwide virus. Thank you very much, and you are appreciated.
We have Austin Dixon on the line.
Okay. Austin, are you with us? Okay, Austin Dixon is director of the Community Foundation. We're not hearing him, and it may represent continuing technical issues.
Yeah.
Ms. Franchina, is Austin Dixon on the line?
Yes,
I'm
he
here.
is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There you go.
Please state your name and address, and you now have 4 minutes.
My name is Austin Dixon, and I live at 1661 Saddlewood Boulevard in Kerrville.
All right. Any response? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for this honor. We're really grateful to receive the award, and we appreciate y'all noticing our efforts. I did want to say that everything that we've done over the past few months is only possible because of 304 very generous donors who have contributed to all of our funds. A special thanks goes to the H.E. Butt Foundation, which was not only an early donor to the emergency funds, but was a repeat donor and also led with a staff giving campaign of their own. There was also businesses and over 250 residents that donated to Hill Country Strong, Kerrville Food Relief, and the Kerrville Utility Kindness Fund, as you mentioned. The Hill Country Strong Fund has granted out $194,000 to 21 nonprofit organizations in the area. The Kerrville Food Relief Fund has raised over $100,000 and has given away $66,000 so far to Christian Assistance Ministry, Mustard Seed Ministries, and St. Vincent de Paul, among others. And then the Kerrville Utility Kindness Fund has 50 donors and has granted so far $12,000 to help approximately 150 City of Kerrville households avoid utility disconnection. In total, we've raised about $325,000 in just a matter of weeks, and this is all from neighbors helping neighbors, and we gladly accept this award on their behalf. And if we face another crisis, the Community Foundation will be here then too. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Austin.
you very much.
Thank you, all of you.
Okay, at this time, we come to the consent agenda. By the way, again, we are observing, because of COVID-19, the restraints in how we operate as we have before. And there are a number of ways that citizens can have input by calling in, by the City Hall drop box, and other ways. And so we will look tonight for individuals who are making comments and observations regarding the matters that we are considering. At this time, we come to the consent agenda, which is voted on together unless a council member or a citizen asks for that item to be pulled. So I would like to pull 2C, I'm sorry, 2D. And we have a citizen who wants to pull 2B,
I want to pull 2C.
and then you want to do 2C. Okay.
I also wanted 2C, thank you.
Do what?
I also wanted 2C, thank you.
Okay, all right. 2B, 2C, 2D, we'll pull. Now, is there a motion regarding the remainder items there?
I move that we approve items 2A, 2E, F, and G on the consent agenda.
All right? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of going ahead and passing those, which are 2A, 2E, 2F, and 2G. Okay? If you'd, with the upraised hand, please. Thank you. Okay. First, let's hear, is there a citizen comment on 2B?
Yes, sir. George Baruti, are you on the line?
I'm here if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All
Please
right,
state-
so,
Please
all right,
state your
George Bur-
name and address, and you now have 4 minutes.
okay, George Baruti, 1616 Glen Road. Real briefly, the administrative service contract between EIC and Senator Kerrville, don't have a problem with the contract, but I'm a little confused. A question is, why is EIC being charged for engineering services from the city? Last year, I guess in this year's budget, it's going to be to the tune of $90,000. EIC does not actually design, produce, or build any of the projects. It only funds the projects, and therefore really doesn't utilize engineering services whatsoever. The recipient of the funding, whoever that is, whether it's the city or private entity, would be responsible for the engineering and design, whatever is being funded. So I guess I don't understand why EIC is paying for services that they don't really use.
Do we have a staff response?
Sure, I'd be happy to respond to the council. Essentially, there's a number of services. While it's not directly on engineering, it's managing both the engineering contracts usually for a project, as well as the construction management, construction inspection to produce that project essentially for the entity. So there are quite a bit of services that are provided by our engineering department that aren't necessarily directly engineering related per se.
Okay.
Does that help answer that question for you?
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. Okay, 2C, two council members asked that that be pulled.
You want to vote on 2B first?
Do we have any?
And we also have Gil Salinas on the line if he needs to speak.
All right, okay, you want to go back to 2B and
On
vote on that
2B?
and then move on? Okay, then 2B, Administrative Services Contract.
I will move that we accept 2B with the administrative services contract between the city and EIC.
Okay, all right.
I'll second it.
Got a motion second, all in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, let's go to 2C, and Ms. Clarkson, Ms. Eichner, both want to speak to that.
You want to go ahead?
Go ahead. I just basically wanted to thank Gil and the KEDC for the good work that they've done, for the projections that they're making for the year. I also appreciated the fact that they have cut back in their contract to save money, and I felt that they did a really good job on that. And I just appreciate what they did. I'm wearing my Skymaster shirt tonight and just so excited about that. And not much has been said about the group, the metal company out on Harper Road, but I think they've got a great looking building, and you guys have just been doing a great job. So I just wanted to say thank you and keep up the good work. We're looking forward to good things.
Good, good, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, well, first, I wanted to say I'm pleased to continue to support KEDC. Very pleased to see the professionalism and what's developed through this organization. I just happened to notice on the contract that it says that we're going to receive council reports quarterly, and I didn't notice that happening on the quarter. So I just wanted to make note of that so that we can have, so that we can be fulfilling that part of the contract for this coming year.
So the EIC gets a monthly report, and the mayor, of course, is on the board as well as myself, and now Gary is on EIC. So do you want to keep those quarterly reports in there? And I think COVID kind of got in the way on that.
Right.
And we just kind of lost track of it. Otherwise, it'd have been done. And we can certainly start doing that with the new agreement, or we can take it out of there. Do you want quarterly reports from KEDC at council?
I don't feel like I haven't heard from KEDC. I think that at one time there was this fear of this disconnect and not knowing what's going on. But when things get to the point where, in my opinion as a council member, I feel like I should know, feel like I've been informed. And I think the purpose of KEDC is to be able to create those relationships, and those take a long time. And I don't necessarily feel like we have to stick to a quarterly. I just want to make sure whatever you guys think matches the agreement. If we're going to put it in the agreement, it needs to happen. If we want to take it out of the agreement, I'm fine with that too.
I don't think we need them because what's been happening is when there was a decision that needed to be made or something to be, for us to be told, we'd have special
Right.
meetings.
Agreed.
So I think we could probably do away with the quarterly. And they have to be involved with us when they have something percolating. So I don't know what a report would do except just put it on paper.
I think take that out, but the city manager and I are both on that board, and so it's incumbent, I think, upon us, certainly particularly me, to get you any information about updates or what's going on, that kind of thing.
So if I make a motion, would I move that we accept item 2C on the consent agenda, but strike item 1, is it 1C, 1E, is that it? Where it says KDC shall make quarterly
Yes.
presentations to city council? Will we strike that?
Right.
Okay.
That's a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second, any discussion?
Is there any public?
We do have Gil Salinas on the line if you need
All
to
right.
speak with him.
Let's listen to Gil and then come back to vote on this matter, because he may have a particular perspective on it.
Mr. Salinas, are you on the line?
Thank you. Yes, I just saw the little unmute button. So as far as on the reporting, it's up to you all. We can come in and do a quarterly presentation, not a problem. What we have been doing, and again, part of it was a COVID, and then we're at the tail end of closing the SkyMaster deal, is the KDC highlights, where we provide information to our stakeholder groups, and that one also goes to our council members as well. But again, it's you know, if you all want, we can most definitely come in on a quarterly basis, or continue doing what we've been doing, which is the highlights, and then working in tandem with our presentations to the EIC and our other stakeholder groups as well.
Yeah, Gil, I like to know you're out there working, and a lot of times, I know I work for Metropolitan Life a little bit, and I would spend so much time on reports when I could be out getting tenants for their office buildings. So, not that we don't want to know, but I think it's time better spent working on that prospect. And then come to us when you have it.
Yeah.
Gail, would there be something, we all understand the need to work with groups and not share information initially, but is there something that you feel you could share with us on a quarterly basis that would be appropriate?
It would be very similar. We do this with the K-Pub. We present to them on a quarterly basis. And it's just a quick update on project activity that we have, both new projects and then what we're doing with some of our local companies. So I think you mentioned like Prime Metal Buildings. We had given a report to K-Pub about that particular project, again, as part of our brief program. And that one is, Mike usually says, Mike Whitler says, you know, if you come in for 5 minutes, that's enough for us. So we cater to their request for a short presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think from our discussion, Gil, the basic thing is that we know how we're communicating, and we probably will vote to take that quarterly requirement out. But at the same time, we just all need to make sure that we're communicating with the council about what's going on. And one thing I wanted to ask, kind of aside from that, in the Killdeer Mountain Management announcement about that operation coming here or extending to here, apparently that's gotten quite a bit of attention statewide and even beyond. Am I right?
Yes, sir. So we've gotten a lot of traction as far as press and really at the national level. One of the things that I like is it was featured in Area Development Magazine, and that is one of like 3 magazines that are highly read by site selectors and location advisors. And lo and behold, we started getting some phone calls. It's like, well, talk to us about Kerrville. We really hadn't heard, you know, about industry in your area. So we're starting to see the benefits of, again, you know, bringing in a high caliber project, the rollout that we had, and having the office of the governor announce it. So we're now starting to see the benefit, and we're going to start using that to market as well.
Okay, all right.
Council, I know I seconded this, but I think I'm going to suggest that maybe we think about leaving it in there. It might be kind of nice for the public to be able to hear the things that they are involved in. I mean, of course, the things that they can share with us, and there might be some things that maybe we get, but maybe the public doesn't get, and they would if they present it on a quarterly basis. Mm-hmm. That's just 4 times a year, and
Okay.
Would that presentation be an open session, or would it be in an executive session?
He can't attend an executive session and have
Yeah.
city staff, so it'd have to be an
and
open session.
that's what I would assume. It's something, just some things that the public could use. I mean, like what he just mentioned here, and they're doing a great job, and I think I would say maybe we should
Yeah.
really consider.
It certainly isn't something that I don't want to do. I think
didn't
Delaney made a
match.
good point by asking, is it something that's going to cause a little bit of extra hardship for you? And it sounds like not really, is what, I mean, Gil, is that kind of what you're saying? It's just,
Hardship? No. It's we can definitely come in on a quarterly basis and provide an update that would be public. Not a problem.
well, I would like that too, so I will
I think
withdraw my
it's-
motion then.
Okay,
All right.
and I'll withdraw the second.
Motion withdrawn. Anything else for Gil?
Doing a good job. Great
Yes.
interview today.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Great.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Gil. And Teresa.
And Teresa, that's right.
All right.
So now I'll move that we approve item 2C on the consent
Okay.
consent
All right.
agenda.
And I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion second to approve 2C. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand, and it carries unanimously. All right, let's go to 2D. My reason asking to pull that is not because of disagreement, but it is to me almost a unique situation, and I just want to be certain that citizens understand that. So I'm going to ask somebody from staff, if you would, to explain that decision or recommendation.
So they've been requested, the city of Kerrville to remove this particular piece of property from our CCN, which is our service area for our water customers. This piece of property is way on the outside of our reach. It's down in a valley north of town, about 1.5 miles from our closest water line. We would have to add additional lifts or additional pressure plane and tanks and about 1 mile line to serve them. There's about 20 homes there. So it's not advantageous to us to reach way out there and serve this customer. TCEQ has requested us to look at them because they have to, for their own reasons, they need to get their own certificate of necessity or convenience and necessity. I think it's probably has to do with setting their rates and so on, because it comes from the PUC. And so we have to abandon ours so they can have their own certificate.
Mm-hmm. All right, as I understand it, it looks advantageous to them and to us. Am I right?
Yes, sir, yes. It's required by the state for them to do this. I believe so they can set their own rates because the PUC is the rate making portion of the TCEQ.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. It's just unusual kind of a situation, but I want to make sure we understood it. All right. Then I will make a motion that we adopt, pass 2D amendment to the city of Kerrville.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, let me know by the raised hands. And Mrs. McElhannon, I've gone ahead of you, as I have in the past, where you are supposed to read these items in. And forgive me.
That's okay.
Okay, we go into, at 6:27, a public hearing. And if you will read that in, please.
Ordinance number 2020-16, an ordinance adopting the annual budget for the city of Kerrville, Texas fiscal year 2021, providing appropriations for each city department and fund, containing a cumulative clause and containing a savings and severability clause. Any citizen wishing to speak on public hearing item 3A, please raise your hand now via the Zoom app or *9 if calling in by telephone. After Mayor Blackburn opens the public hearing, the moderator, Ms. Franchina, will notify you when it's your turn to speak and will unmute you. Mayor Blackburn, back to you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Ms. Dozier, you have a presentation for us?
Yes, have a brief presentation. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I feel like we've talked about this budget for a long time and that you're probably as familiar with it as I am. But I wanted to hit a few highlights tonight. And I'm going to start with our calendar. So this is a calendar that you've seen multiple times. We are moving right along down the list here, and we're all the way to August 25th. This is the public hearing for the budget, and then also tonight there will be separate votes for a budget ordinance and a tax rate ordinance. Just to summarize a few of the highlights for this budget. These are slides that you've seen before, but just want to reiterate that we are proposing a reduction to the property tax rate down to the state-defined no new revenue rate. We're predicting a decrease in sales tax due to the recession. There is no change in water or sewer rates proposed. We are projecting lower hotel occupancy tax. And we're looking at no merit raises, no cost of living adjustments, no public safety step increases. So basically no changes to salaries of any kind. And we also are proposing a reduced employee count through hiring delays and the elimination of 2 vacant positions. This is a list of some major initiatives. So this budget is austere is the word that we've been using, but I don't want you to think that we're not making progress on some significant initiatives as well. And some of these initiatives they're primarily things that are funded by sources from previous years, such as our street and drainage projects that are funded by debt that was issued in a previous year. We also have some grant-funded items. So there will still be some significant activities going on in the year, even though we are projecting lower revenue sources. And just to highlight here, we're looking at proposed expenditures of $70.5 million. That's for the city-wide budget. The general fund, the water fund, and the capital projects funds account for 78% of that spending, so that's where the majority is. And per our financial policy, the general fund and the water fund are both balanced budgets, and they meet all of the reserve policy requirements. And we're looking at overall revenues of $58.2 million, so that's less than that expenditure number of 70.5. And that relates primarily to capital projects. Like I just mentioned, the funding for those projects was in a previous year, but the spending will be in 2021. So obviously, if we issue $10 million in debt, we can't complete all of those projects in the same year that the debt was issued. Same kind of thing with some special revenue funds. For example, the library was given a large gift at the end of last year. They would have had to spend the entire gift in about a month's time to have a balanced budget. So that's not how those special revenue funds work. That money is kind of like a savings account that can be planned for and used or saved up over time and then spent in one lump sum. So that's what causes the difference between the revenues and the expenditures. And it's not that we're presenting an unbalanced budget. It's just a few special circumstances like that. Let's see. I'll talk more about property tax when we actually get to the vote on the property tax, but just to note, we are reducing property tax. Property tax valuations have increased, but we are decreasing the rate to the no new revenue rate, which basically means that that increase in valuation should be offset by the decreased rate so that the property tax payer pays approximately the same as previous years. And it's important to note that this is the third rate reduction in 4 years, and the rate has stayed the same or decreased for 11 years now. And that's all I have.
Here, let me go to the council first. Any questions from council, and then we'll see if there are any folks from the public that want to comment.
I've asked so many questions over the months, so I've gotten all the answers I need. Thank you very much.
Great.
I feel the same way.
Same.
All right. One question, this is just for clarification. Remind me what we keep in reserve, the percentage for emergencies, et cetera.
So the biggest reserve that we have is in our general fund. Our general fund is where most of the expenditures occur. That includes public safety, streets, parks, those large departments. And our financial policy states that our goal is to keep a 25% unassigned fund balance. So that's kind of like a savings account equal to about 3 months worth of expenses roughly. You can look at it like that. The budget that we are proposing projects us to end the year at just under 30% as that unassigned fund balance, and that's percent of operating expenditures that I'm looking at there.
Well, just a comment, with COVID-19 and the economic downturn, in some ways, it can seem like we've been driving with the emergency brake on. But when I look at what you've listed as major initiatives, street reconstruction, drainage projects, Olympic Drive, annual street maintenance, just on, library repairs, subdivision code, we've remained active.
I agree, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
gotten things done.
And yes, and definitely plan to continue getting things done in fiscal year 2021.
Good. Okay. Now, do we have any public comment?
Ms. Franchina, you can go ahead and start with the public comment.
Okay, we have one caller, Mr. Baruti. Please state your name and address, and you now have 4 minutes to speak.
George Baruti, 1616 Glen Road. So, obviously the budget document is to be council's most clear statement of policy and priority, which is why the entire approval process is so regulated and designed to be done at public meetings, public hearings, etc. So I was a little bit surprised and disappointed to see that this proposed budget disclosed the fact that the current FY 2020 budget had been amended, not in compliance with the city charter. Section 806C of the charter allows that city council is to approve any budget amendments via ordinance. Roughly $1.5 to $2 million of amendments have apparently been made recently due to the impact of COVID. However, none of the amendments have been publicly discussed or disclosed through an ordinance approval process. The citizens deserve, and the charter requires, that such priority shifts in budget are to be done publicly. Now, the budget itself, the 2021 budget before us is in fact a balanced budget as was stated, but it is continuing a few disturbing trends that council ought to at least explain to the public. First, we continue to defer substantial maintenance obligations, namely street maintenance, to the point that by the end of 2021, our total deferred maintenance in streets alone will be more than $20 million. That was based on the Fugo report, by the way. Current leadership keeps talking about streets as if they are discretionary spending. However, the bond consultant later on in the agenda can help to explain heavy deferment of maintenance costs will negatively impact our bond rating, or could. Second, over the past 3 years, the portion of the property tax revenue burdened by debt service has actually been rising. This budget proposes that nearly 14.5 cents of every property tax dollar will go towards debt service, which is nearly a 10% increase from just 3 years ago. The third, the portion of the general fund budget being supported by property tax is steadily rising. Add to that, the residential to commercial property tax split is still in the 65% to 35% range. And what you realize is that our local economy is increasingly riding on the backs of the local residents. There is no silver bullet solution, but one thing is certain: if council does not lead, our current trends will prove to be unsustainable in very short order. Thanks.
Can I ask Ms. Dozier, the INS rate and the M&O rate, can you tell us what that means? And I see that on the page of the budget here that talks about each year, the rate, how much of that's for maintenance and operations, how much that's for interest and sinking?
Correct. Yes, so the property tax rate is broken into two pieces. One part is for maintenance and operations. You might see it referred to as the M&O rate. One part of the rate is for debt. It's sometimes called the INS rate, or interest and sinking rate. And we do have that disclosed in the budget book, the portion that is going to the debt side versus the maintenance and operations side. We are looking at a still actually coming in at the no new revenue rate, which means, basically no impact to an average homeowner is the idea that the comptroller is trying to get to with that rate. That debt rate has stayed the same at 7.35 cents for some time now. We did issue debt last year for streets and drainage, the $10 million. So there was an increase in our debt service related to that. If you look at the debt service fund specifically, you can see that we drew it down a little bit last year in the first year of that the debt was issued. We're building that debt service balance back up a little bit close to where we started. So we are leaving the rate the same at the 7.35. As far as what the average taxpayer sees, they see the entire rate. And a couple of other things to note: we are increasing the streets budget, so we're increasing it from 1.75 million to 1.8 million, which is significant in a time when the overall budget is being decreased. We're looking at a 2.4% decrease, yet we've still found money in this budget to increase streets. And also, I think it's important to note what we've really seen during this COVID pandemic time related to sales tax. And sales tax is a significant revenue source, our second largest revenue source in the general fund. And it is not just paid by the citizens of Kerrville. It's paid by anyone who buys something within the city of Kerrville and people who place internet orders with our local manufacturers. And we've seen real strength in our sales tax numbers. We've seen that Kerrville really is a regional retail hub, and we have people from all over coming here, and that sales tax money stays here. It doesn't go home with them. We've seen the importance of having manufacturing in Kerrville and how that can benefit us. So I think it's important to note that this budget does significantly have revenue that is not just from residents of the city of Kerrville paying property taxes here.
And when I went through Leadership Kerr County back in 2000, the residential to commercial was like 75-25 or 70-30. So for Mr. Baruti to say it's gone to 65-35, looks like it's trending in a good direction. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I would add is,
Thank you, Amy.
in terms of streets, we all know that you all have approved $8 million for streets. No council has done that in years, maybe even decades, because bond issues there haven't been any, and COs for streets have been, sparse. And so, I think for the first time, in fact, in a long time, the city's doing something about streets in addition to what Amy mentioned. And debt service as a percent is increasing only because the overall tax rate is decreasing. And I don't know if there's a suggestion that we need to raise our taxes,
right?
Especially at a time when we're enduring a pandemic. And then on the sustainability issue, in addition to what Amy mentioned, we do have a 5-year forecast. We have that in every budget and have for years, which looks out very conservatively, our revenues versus expenditures. And it is sustainable in terms of the measures that we're taking today, particularly since we're cutting expenditures. So we don't have those compound on us in the next year and the next year. So just a few comments in response to public comment.
I wanted to mention one other thing as far as the budget amendment. So I believe there may be a little bit of confusion on, and this is described on page 43 of the proposed budget book. The city manager at any time during the year can approve line item transfers, is what we call them. So that's moving budget money from one line item to another line item. If Parks needs some money and Streets has extra money, they could, move things around, and the city manager could approve that as long as there is a $0 net impact. And so when the pandemic hit and we started looking at these, significantly reduced revenue numbers, we ask each department to go in and look very closely at every line item of their budget and tell us, what do you think that we could cut? Because if we have this shortfall in revenues, we want to offset that with decreased expenditures. Every department gave us a list of things that they said, okay, we can do without this, we can push this expense, we won't have this travel, those kind of things. And so we actually took that money out of their line item within their budget, and we moved it all over to a single line item called contingency. So it's put over kind of in reserve, and if our revenues, come back or whatever, we might be able to move things back around. But we wanted the departments to really try to hold to the amounts that they thought that they could cut. And so what you're seeing as far as differences between the original budget and the current budget are those line item transfers, but there has not been an amendment. However, at year end, we will be bringing you an amendment, and that's voted on through an ordinance process, requires 2 votes. We've been talking about that a little bit through the budget process. We are hoping at year end that there may be some money that we can transfer to an asset replacement fund to fund asset purchases. And that would require council approving that amendment because it's actually moving money between funds. So we will be bringing you a budget amendment at year end when we know a little bit better how everything's going to end up exactly. But until then, we've only made line item transfers, which the city manager can approve.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, y'all aren't spending more money.
Correct. It's all been to reduce
it's all
the
been
expenses, yes.
to make cuts. I mean, I like to save money.
A couple of observations. In terms of the next few years, there's a plan to significantly pay down the debt, and that's obviously important. On the issue that was raised about how much tax is on residential over commercial, I had a conversation today over lunch about the importance of the Kerr Economic Development Corporation doing what they've just done to help bring us the Kildare Mountain Manufacturing, which can really help us in terms of increased taxes from the commercial side. And there are already some other operations looking at the possibility of coming here. And that can help significantly. Anything else?
Well, I noticed La Casa Drive was under construction. Thank you very much. I didn't know exactly where it was in the priority lineup, but, Hill Country Drive was such a wonderful improvement to have that repaired. Wasn't inexpensive, but how long did that road stayed flooded sometimes for weeks. So anyway, I see these things happening. I'm so glad we're able to continue to do them. So, thank you.
Well, I think, Amy, you had given us a list of the amounts of budget cuts from each department, and that's admirable for the time that we're in and for the departments to say, hey, we'll just tighten the belt, and they had done, that was a significant number. About 2 million, was it not?
Correct.
That's what I thought.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Dozier? Do we have any other public comments?
Ms. Franchina, are there any other public comments?
Well, we have one speaker.
You have an additional speaker?
Yes, we do. Ms. Intrigan?
Oh, that's the next item.
Okay, I don't think she's going to speak on the public hearing.
Okay.
All right.
Mayor, you can go ahead and close out the public hearing, and we do have to have a record vote on this item.
All right, okay. Yes. At 6:48, the public hearing is closed. I'm going to ask for a motion and a second on this item.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2020-16 on first reading.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay.
I'll vote to approve.
Will you call the order?
Sure, that's fine. Councilmember Clarkson,
Vote to approve.
Mayor Blackburn,
Vote to approve.
Councilmember Eichner,
Vote to approve.
Councilmember Sigerman.
I vote to approve.
All right, okay. Now, you read in 4A for us.
Ordinance number 2020-15, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of up to $13,685,000 in principal amount of City of Kerrville, Texas general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020, authorizing the approval and execution of all agreements and other instruments and procedures related thereto, delegating authority to certain city officials to select outstanding obligations to be refunded, and approve all final terms of the bonds, approving an official statement, and calling certain obligations for redemption. We do have one citizen speaker signed up, and we do have a presenter also.
All right, okay. Ms. Dozier, will you introduce this?
Yes, I will introduce this item. So this is what we've been talking about and what you heard about a month ago regarding a debt refunding. So this is basically a refinancing of two of our existing debt issuances, and we began looking at this several months ago. As you know, we're in a period of historic low interest rates, and so it looks like there's some opportunities here for us to save some money. And I'm going to introduce Ann Berger-Intrican. She is our financial advisor from Hilltop Securities, and she's going to go through a presentation with us. Ann, are you on the line? Ann?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And Ann will be speaking, and I'll be advancing the slides for her.
Thank you, Ms. Dozier. Honorable Mayor and council members, my name is Ann Berger-Intrican, and we serve the City of Kerrville as your financial advisor. We have a brief presentation, much of which you were able to see about a month ago with my colleague, Colby Eccles. And so I will walk through. We're going to turn now to the market update. This is the bond buyers index of 20 municipal bonds, which if we go back and we look at this chart over 20 years, we are at what is significantly a historical low interest rate of 2.05. I will tell you, we priced some bonds today and we saw the rates go up slightly, but still we are in what would be deemed a historically low interest rate environment. On the next page, we show this chart for over the course of 1 year, and you can see a year ago we were at about 4.25, and now we're at about a 2.05. What a dramatic difference. We also, on the next page, have the municipal market yield curve, and it is interesting. We are seeing a phenomenon that we saw back in 2008 and 2009, where the spreads for AAA, AA, and single A all held relatively constant, but we are seeing a little bit of widening for weaker credits that are in the BAA category, but given the City of Kerrville's ratings, we are seeing that the integrity across the yield curve is very strong. Next page. Next page. As mentioned before, the city has two series of bonds, your Certificates of Obligation 2012 and your Certificates of Obligation 2013, which are callable, and just it is almost unbelievable because I believe when we sold those bonds, we joked that we would never have an opportunity to refund them because the coupons on the 2012 range from a 2% to a 2.50, and the coupons on the 13 range from 1.5 to a 2.75. However, we do have an opportunity at this current interest rate environment to look at these bonds for refunding opportunities. Next slide. Next slide. So on the 2012 bonds with our structured savings, thinking about the existing debt for the City of Kerrville, we are looking at targeting savings between 2023 and 2026. And based on the numbers that we ran as of July 21st, we are projecting gross savings of about $400,000, present value savings of $384,000, with a present value benefit of a 5.85 and a true interest cost of 1.377. Next slide. On the 2013 bonds, we're again looking at targeted savings in 23 through 26. We are projecting gross savings of just under $330,000, present value savings of approximately $305,000, with a present value benefit projected of 4.384 and a projected true interest cost of 1.539. We are, if I can ask you to please turn to the next two slides, the slide that is titled Parameter Bond Sale. It is very interesting when you do a new money transaction, often the timing is driven by when you're going to be letting the construction contract. However, for refundings, it is very sensitive to the prevailing market conditions. Therefore, it is very common for cities when you do a refinancing of bonds to adopt what's called a parameter bond sale. Sometimes it's parameter, sometimes it's called delegation ordinance. Basically, this allows us to put the transaction in day-to-day mode such that once we've gone through all the various steps in the transaction, we have the opportunity to consider moving forward as long as certain parameters are met. And generally, it's minimum savings, a maximum interest rate, a maximum principal amount, a maximum maturity date, a defined expiration for the delegation authority, and generally we delegate 3 city officials, including the mayor, the city manager, and the chief financial officer. Next slide. So in looking at the projected savings that we showed relative to the 2012 and 2013 certificates of obligation, we would like to recommend for city council consideration that the guardrails are the primary parameters that would have to be met before any bond sale would be able to be undertaken, is that we would have minimum savings of 3%, a true interest cost of not higher than 2%. The maximum principal amount would be $13,685,000. The maximum maturity date is August 15th, 2023. There is no plan to extend this debt. The final maturities would remain the same. We're asking for a 180-day delegation authority period, and that we would be consistent with what we've done before and what is traditional, that the delegation authority would be provided to the mayor, city manager, and or chief financial officer. Next slide. Next slide. Should the city council decide to move forward with this, you can see on our proposed timetable, we have the meeting this evening. We would go through the standard process, which includes the drafting of the preliminary official statement, sending the documents and all the related documents to Standard & Poor's to go through the rating agency process. We would have a due diligence call, and based on this particular timing, we would target pricing Tuesday, September 22nd, with closing on or about October 15th. Again, this schedule would be dependent upon the ability to meet all of the delegation parameters that were recommended earlier. And so in summary, municipal interest rates are at historical lows, even with the very low coupons from the original bond sales. At this particular time, a refinancing of the 2012 and 2013 certificates of obligation currently projects debt service savings. If the council is interested in pursuing a refinancing, then we would ask you to confirm the parameters that we identified, that those would be placed into the ordinance for consideration. You would consider the ordinance, we would proceed with the proposed timetable of events, and we would continue to monitor the municipal market interest rate. And so with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, one question I have, the maximum maturity date, you had said 2023, but on the screen it was 2033.
2033 is correct.
It is 2033.
My apologies, 2033, yes, sir.
All right. Okay, I've asked this before, but I'll ask it again. Ann, how long have you worked with the city of Kerrville on its finances?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I have worked with the city of Kerrville since the late 80s. It's really been an honor and a pleasure to have had such a long tenured relationship.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Council?
And I did want to make one more comment. I just wanted to make sure council understands that debt ordinances are a little bit different than other ordinances that you're used to. So for the Texas Government Code ordinance related ordinances related to the issuance of bonds become effective with only one reading. And this state law supersedes the city's charter that directs 2 readings for ordinances. And this applies to all municipalities in Texas with similar charter provisions.
All right, okay. Okay, public comment?
Mr. Baroody, are you on the line?
Yeah, but I'll pass on this one.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion on this matter?
I will move that we approve ordinance number 2020-15.
I'll second. Oh,
Got a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand, and it passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Dozier, and thank you, Ann.
thank you, yes.
Thank you, Dozier.
It's nice to save
Amy.
money right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. You're gonna stay up there for the next one. If you would read that in 4B, Ms. McElhennan.
Ordinance number 2020-17, an ordinance levying an ad valorem tax for the use and the support of the municipal government for the city of Kerrville, Texas for fiscal year 2021, providing for apportioning each levy for specific purposes, and providing when taxes shall become due and when same shall become delinquent if not paid.
All right.
All right, just a few things to go over here. We talked a little bit about this with the budget, but in accordance with state law, there's no public hearing on the tax rate, only this vote. And I'll get into why that is. So just wanted to reiterate that our current tax rate is 54 cents per $100 of assessed value. And then the state has very specific guidelines that result in approximately a 20-page calculation to get to the voter approval rate and the no new revenue rate. And those calculations are available on starting on page 313 of the proposed budget book. They're also on the city's website, actually on the front page, if you are interested in looking at the detail. But the idea with the no new revenue rate is that that is the rate needed to raise the same amount of revenue in the current year as in the prior year. So if appraised property values go up, the rate would need to come down to raise the same amount of revenue. The actual complication is more complicated than that because of a lot of adjustments for things like new property, changes in exemptions, annexations, frozen property, lawsuits, pending lawsuits, etc. that you can see if you want to look at that calculation. The voter approval rate is kind of starts with that no new revenue rate, and it specifically looks at the maintenance and operations portion of the no new revenue rate. And based on changes in the legislature that the legislature made last year, that no new revenue rate can increase only up to 3.5%. And if it's going to increase more than that, then it goes to the voters to be approved. So the voter approval rate is the 53.38 that you see there. The no new revenue rate is 51.16. So that's 51.16 cents per $100 of assessed value. So like I said before, this is a calculated rate. It's based on averages and overall numbers. So there'll be differences for every property owner. But the idea is that the increases in property value will be offset by the decrease in rate so that the property owner is left paying approximately the same thing. And just for reference, so I'm talking about the city rate only. So when you pay your property taxes, you are not just paying property taxes to the city. The biggest portion of the rate, 52%, this is based on the last year's rate or the current year's rate, goes to Kerrville Independent School District. And then the county gets about 23%, the city 24%, and then UGRA and Headwaters get a small portion as well. So according to that state mandated calculation, the county is also proposing the no new revenue rate. So the county and the city are proposing the no new revenue rate. The school district is proposing a lower tax rate, but it's still more than the no new revenue rate. So just want to make sure everyone understands when they get their, when they're actually paying their property taxes, they're paying all these entities, and we're just talking about the city portion tonight. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions?
I think this is a good thing. Thank you guys for all your figures and everything that you've done to come up with this, so.
And at risk of repeating myself, just want to get it out there that getting to this tax rate means making some sacrifices. And it's very appreciated.
All right. Do we have public comment?
No, sir, no one signed up for this item. However, this is also a record vote.
Yeah, okay, all right. Any further discussion? Okay, if you will call for the vote.
Well, I'll make a motion
I'm
that
sorry.
We need a motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I'll make a motion. We approve
Motion.
ordinance number 2020-17 on first reading.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right.
All right, sir. Place two, Kevin Clarkson.
I vote to approve.
Yeah.
Mayor Bill Blackburn.
Approve.
Councilmember Judy Eichner.
I vote to approve.
I vote to approve.
Councilmember Delane Sigerman. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's go to
Thank you,
five.
Amy.
Thank you. 5A, Ms. McConnell, if you'll read that in.
Purchase replacement generator for the Kerrville Police Department in the amount of $60,893. And there's no citizen speaker signed up.
Right. All right, Chief. You're chief until the 10th of September?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do we get to approve?
No, we don't, we don't vote to approve it. And we're not gonna approve it. You need to stay in the saddle. Good, go ahead.
This agenda item is for the replacement of the emergency generator backup power for the Irville Police Department. Our current generator is old and it's unreliable due to age and limited serviceability. Backup facility generator is necessary to ensure continuous operations of key and critical infrastructure for police services and the emergency communications, 911, and the public safety answering point that are contained within the facility in the event of loss of power to the facility. This is an 80 kilowatt generator, which will provide ample power for not only our emergency operations, but is movable in the future. In the event that we have an upgraded facility, we can move that generator and utilize it in at the new location. We've had some recent issues with weather-related problems that have caused loss of power and loss of continuity in our ability to deliver communications for the city, and also to continually keep our computer-aided dispatch and record management system running during those times. This has been an issue that has been ongoing, and we're looking to replace that generator.
I would also add that on top of that, he's been dealing with air conditioning issues, with leaks, and a number of challenges, and he never complains, he just deals with it. And so we are really going to need to address the public safety building sooner rather than later. It's just continuing to deteriorate, and it's not a good working environment. But this new generator will help.
Okay. All right.
Well, having lived in Florida for 25 years and been through 8 hurricanes, we had 2 generators at all times in our home, and I can tell you, I don't know what we would have done without them. You need them, you need them.
Redundancy and power is important.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
What's the life on a generator? Is there any average?
I think it depends on the type of generator. The generator that we have at the facility now predates the the movement of the police department in there, and I believe it's original to the building, it was built in 1974.
It's been there for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion, questions, council? Do we have anybody on public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Then would someone like to make a motion in regard to this?
I will move that we authorize the purchase of the replacement generator and installation for the police department.
All right.
I'll second it.
Okay. Got a motion second. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 5B.
Briefing and possible action as to the city's ongoing preparedness and response to COVID-19 coronavirus. And we do have one citizen speaker signed up.
Okay, all right.
Good
Okay,
afternoon,
Chief.
Mayor, members of council. How are y'all doing? this
Good, how are
afternoon?
you?
Good. I got a brief update for you tonight because there's not much changing from the last time I was here to give you an update on COVID-19, with the exception that the outlook is getting better in our community.
Yay.
The cases are decreasing, and I'll share those numbers with you
That's
tonight.
good to know.
So we'll start as we normally do with a look at the previous week. For the week of August 17th through 23rd, there were 260 COVID-19 tests conducted in Kerr County. 15 confirmed positive for a 5% positivity rate, and 2 recorded deaths last week. I spoke to you last time about the upcoming testing at the Youth Event Center. Curative Incorporated is the company that's actually doing that now for us. And on yesterday, they conducted 211 total tests. Those results are pending, but we anticipate we should have them back within the next 24, 48 hours. At close of business today, so far, there's been 441 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Kerr County. We now have 15 active cases, so that's a tremendous reduction from where we've been in past weeks. We're at 9 total deaths, and we have 15 hospitalized at this time. I thought this graph was important to share with you, and I certainly hope you can actually see it. But on yesterday, Texas reported 2,754 COVID cases in the state. The last time it was this low was June 16th, and on that particular day, there was 2,622. July 14th and 15th hold the highest date for COVID-19 cases in the state of Texas. And on those 2 dates, there was over 20,000 cases, 10,000 plus per day. So what this graph basically shows is that COVID cases are currently in a deceleration phase in the state of Texas. And if you look at the graph, the mandatory mask mandate was put in place July 3rd. You can see the peak about 2 weeks later, July 16th, we're kind of at a peak. COVID has an incubation period of about 14 days. So that's roughly right at 14 days of wearing a mask. Things begin to decrease. So I'll close the comments I have tonight with you that I think what this graph shows is the importance of wearing a mask, but just a reminder that we really need all hands on deck in the community when it comes to good hygiene, social distancing, our at-risk population. And then when you're out in public, if you can't maintain the 6 foot required social distancing, we strongly encourage you to do your part in wearing a mask. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have for me.
Have very many children been tested?
Yes,
There
there's
have been.
but I don't have a number for you. I could go back and see if I could pull that number for you. As I probably stated before, the thing about it is because of HIPAA, we don't get that level of detailed information, but I could do a little research and see if I could come up with what's the percentage of children that we're actually testing in the process.
So far, this is my favorite of your reports. So
I bet there's
if you
more to
can-
come.
If you can do that again next time.
It's my favorite too, but I bet you I'm looking forward to when it's all over more
Yeah.
than you are. But it's good news. Hopefully we'll
That is
continue
good
to.
I'm waiting for the Kerrville clips for that one.
All right, good deal.
All right, good.
Anything else on COVID-19?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all, and
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your support.
Mayor, I would just like to add, and it's not really with COVID, it's just our food relief started because of the COVID. And the hotline is still in place, and donations are still being taken by Community Foundation. And there is Monday, there'll be another mega food drive at Mustard Seed Ministries. And I do believe volunteers are in place. I had talked to Beth, and she has plenty of volunteers, I believe. But if there are people out there who do need that, need some food, they will call her or call the hotline. We'll make sure they get it.
Okay, good, thank you. Thank you for your good work on that. Okay, 5C, if they'll read that in for us.
Sir, we do have one
that's
citizen
right.
speaker signed up.
Yeah,
Ms. McElhannon, he has dropped off the line.
okay. 5C, declaration.
Declaration of local state of disaster due to a public health emergency, March 20th, 2020.
Okay. Is there a presentation on that or any reason for particular
No
discussion?
presentation, this is just council's opportunity to review it and bring up any changes or questions they might have.
All right. Any changes or questions?
I didn't find any.
Okay.
I don't know about anybody else.
No, I did review it, as I was supposed to.
Okay, item 6.
Financial update for the month ended July 31st, 2020.
Ms. Dozier, let me ask you one question, just for clarification. A while ago, the police chief was presenting the need for that generator. How will that be? How will we see that in the budget? How do you deal with like a special item like that?
This particular special item will be in the police department's operating budget, so it'll be in that department rather than the asset replacement fund. It is something that that was, an unexpected need during the year. The police department has quite a bit of budget savings because of vacancies, and they're going to be able to reallocate some of that money to pay for the generator. So it'll be line item transfers within their budget to cover it.
Okay,
So
thank you.
there's no increase to the budget for that.
All right, thank you.
All right, this is my last item on the agenda today. So, go through this quickly. So this is our financial update for the month ended July 31st. And just hitting a few highlights on the general fund. Year-to-date, revenues of $24.5 million and expenditures of $20.9 million. Oops, goodness, didn't mean to go that fast.
That was a really fast report. Are we done?
Done.
We're getting pretty good at it.
Okay, looking at revenues. So our property tax revenue is good and is coming in a little bit higher than budget. Sales tax, I wanted to highlight that, and I'm also going to give you a little bit of preview here because we've actually already received the August sales tax as well. So the August sales tax is not in these numbers, but I wanted to speak to it a little bit. Both July and August were up 11% compared to the previous year, previous period. You'll remember that there's a 2-month delay, so this represents sales in May and June that we actually received the sales tax for in July and August. So July was pretty much the same story that we've seen before and that we've discussed as far as some regional retail and online manufacturing, that kind of thing. In August, what we see in August is really strong retail sales, which is great because that's our largest category of sales tax, especially strong sales at large retailers, online only retailers. Just across the board, we saw really strong retail results in August for these June sales. Also, this was encouraging. The food services category in August for June sales was up 3% over the previous year. So not a huge percentage, but we've seen since the pandemic started that category be down compared to the previous year, and this is the first time that we're seeing it actually better than the previous year. We've seen like fast food restaurants holding pretty strong, but sit-down restaurants were really impacted. But it looks like things are turning around during June for those restaurants. A couple of things on the other revenue category. This is where we're continuing to have a lot of impacts related to COVID. So EMS revenue, $276,000 lower than budget. I think this stat is interesting. Our non-emergency transports down 27% compared to the prior year, so significant. And I don't know exactly how to present this as a good or bad thing, but the month of July, base charges and mileage, our two largest EMS charges, were up compared to the previous July. So something we haven't quite seen in the last few months. Recreation revenue, Kerrville Shriner Park continues to see a lot of business and good revenues. In particular, this is no surprise to council, we've talked about this before, but their RV site revenue. So they have their revenue accounts broken down into tents versus RVs and particular type of RV sites and particular locations, and broken down into a lot of detail. And the RV site revenue looks like they may end up making budget for the year on those particular RV line items. So
I wonder if there's any story you could connect the dots where someone came into Kerrville, bought an RV on Sydney Baker, and drove it to Shriner Park.
I was thinking the same thing.
yeah, there sure aren't many RVs on that lot anymore.
I'm just to be curious.
And I don't have a bullet on here, but Aquatics ended the year with $7,600 in admissions revenue, so at $1 per admission, and then some that are free or some days that were free. That's a good attendance at the pool this summer. And then Municipal Court, their July revenue significantly lower than July of the previous year, and we continue to see that come in much lower than budget. And I know Guillermo spoke to you about some of the initiatives that they're looking at there. On the expenditure side, nothing new this month compared to what we've seen in previous months, but we continue to be on track to meet our reduced expenditure targets, so that those reduced revenues are not going to eat into fund balance. And then looking at the water fund, $10.3 million in revenue and $10.3 million in expense through the end of July. Looking at the individual types of revenue, our water revenue is still below budget. Commercial consumption still lower than budget, which makes sense because we had that period of a lot of commercial closures. Irrigation's still a little lower than budget. I'm not sure if that's a budget model issue or a timing issue, but anyway, there seems to be a lot of irrigation going on now. So we'll see how much of that we can close the gap on by the end of the year. And then sewers tracking very close to budget. On the water fund, expenditures continue to be lower than budget for the same continuing reasons. And this might also be one that we come back to you with a year-end budget amendment on, looking at if we have any money left at the end of the year, transferring some money to asset replacement for the water fund. Looking at the other funds, Guillermo spoke to you extensively about development services. Their revenue is doing great this year. Golf Fund, they hosted the Heart of the Hills tournament in July, but they still are seeing green fees that are lower than the prior year. I know they also did miss out on the firecracker tournament and a sheep and goat raisers tournament that they traditionally have in July those were not held this year. Hotel occupancy tax continues to be down, but we are actually seeing some increases at individual properties, which is good news. And I also just wanted to highlight that we've been doing a lot of work on trying to sign up the short-term rental properties. So those are like the Airbnbs, VRBOs. And this time last year, we had 13 signed up to pay hotel occupancy tax, and we're now up to 52 properties that are registered.
Wow.
So we're seeing some increases there. And that's all I have. Any questions or comments?
I just want to say if the irrigation revenue goes up, you can thank Mark and I.
Very good.
More me.
There are a lot of people trying to save their yards that have not been watering it.
Yes.
That's right, it's a big
Yes.
investment.
And there is a lag in billing, you know, it's after you use the water that the bill shows
Well,
up.
we're just thinking of
so-
the city, you know.
That's right, I appreciate that. All right, thank
Any
you.
other questions or comments? Okay, all right. Would you read 7A, again, please, Ms. McLennan?
Appointment to the Main Street Advisory Board.
Okay, any comments or motions to make in regard to the Main Street Advisory Board?
It looks like we need to reappoint, and I'll make a motion to reappoint Mary Elaine Jones and reappoint Ann Overby and appoint to a new term Diana Howard.
Okay. All right. Questions or comments?
No, it looks good.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Yeah, you got a second here.
And a
Okay.
third here, no.
All right, and a third. Okay. All in favor of that motion, let me know by the raised hand. All right, and it passes unanimously.
And I think they're going to have a lot of good things to look forward to.
Oh, they are, definitely. All right, is there a motion for an executive session? No, okay.
As much as I
If
would-
not, at 7:26, we are adjourned.